Hi, 7th graders. As promised last week, we are having a test today, so reviewing chapters 8 and 9, and then you'll take a test for your assignment. So, lots of vocab words to start with. Cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things. Microscope is an instrument that makes small objects look larger. Cell theory, a widely accepted explanation of the relationship between cells and living things. Cell wall is a rigid supporting layer that surrounds the cells of plants and some other organisms. Cell membrane is a thin, flexible barrier that surrounds a cell and controls which substances pass into and out of a cell. Nucleus, in cells, a large oval organelle that contains the cell's genetic material in the form of DNA and controls many of the cell's activities. Organelles are a tiny cell structure that carries out a specific function within the cell. Ribosomes are a small grain-shaped organelle in the cytoplasm of a cell that produces proteins. Cytoplasm is the thick fluid region of a cell located inside the cell membrane or between the cell membrane and nucleus. Mitochondria is a rod-shaped organelles that convert energy in food molecules to energy the cell can use to carry out its functions. Just a note, I will let you use any notes that you take on this test. So there's a lot of big terms that are difficult, and so whether it's terms or just notes from the lesson reviews, any notes you take, go ahead and use on your test. So next, endoplasmic reticulum, an organelle that forms a maze of passageways in which proteins and other materials are carried from one part of the cell to another. The Golgi apparatus is an organelle in a cell that receives proteins and other newly formed materials from the endoplasmic reticulum, packages them, and distributes them to other parts of the cell. A vacuole is a sac-like organelle that stores water, food, and other materials. Chloroplast, an organelle in cells of plants and some other organisms that captures energy from sunlight and changes it to energy form that cells can use in making food. All right, so lysosomes are a cell organelle which contains chemicals that break down large food particles into smaller ones that can be used by the rest of the cell. Multicellular, consisting of many cells. Unicellular is made of a single cell. Tissue is a group of similar cells that perform a specific function. Organ is a body structure that is composed of different kinds of tissues that work together. Organ system, a group of organs that work together to perform a major function. Elements, a pure substance that cannot be broken down into other substances by chemical or physical means. A compound is a substance made of two or more elements chemically combined in a specific ratio or proportion. Carbohydrates are an energy-rich organic compound, such as a sugar or a starch, that is made of the elements carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Lipids are an energy-rich organic compound, such as fat, oil, or wax, that is made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Proteins, large organic molecule made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sometimes sulfur. Enzymes are a type of protein that speeds up a chemical reaction in a living thing. Nucleic acids are a very large organic molecule made of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and phosphorus that contains instructions cells need to carry out all the functions. DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is the genetic material that carries information about an organism and is passed from parent to offspring. Double helix is the shape of a DNA molecule. Selectively permeable, a property of cell membranes that allows some substances to pass across it while others cannot. Passive transport is the movement of dissolved materials across a cell membrane without using cellular energy. Diffusion is the process by which molecules move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules across a selectively permeable membrane. Active transport is the movement of materials across a cell membrane using cellular energy. Endocytosis. Endocytosis is the process by which the cell membrane takes particles into the cell by changing shape and engulfing the particles. Exocytosis is the process by which the vacuole surrounding particles fuses with the cell membrane, forcing the contents out of the cell. Food chain is a series of events in an ecosystem in which organisms transfer energy by eating and by being eaten. Food web is the pattern of overlapping feeding relationships or food chains among the various organisms in an ecosystem. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants and other autotrophs capture and use light energy to make food from carbon dioxide and water. An autotroph is an organism that is able to capture energy from sunlight or chemicals and use it to produce its own food. A heterotroph is an organism that cannot make its own food and gets food by consuming other living things. Chlorophyll is a green photosynthetic pigment found in the chloroplasts of plants, algae, and some bacteria. Cellular respiration, the process in which oxygen and glucose undergo a complex series of chemical reactions inside cells, releasing energy. Fermentation is the process by which cells release energy by breaking down food molecules without using oxygen. Cell cycle is the series of events in which a cell grows, prepares for division, and divides to form two daughter cells. Interphase is the first stage of the cell cycle that takes place before cell division occurs, during which a cell grows and makes a copy of its DNA. Replication is the process by which a cell makes a copy of the DNA in its nucleus before cell division. Chromosomes are a thread-like structure within a cell's nucleus that contains DNA that is passed from one generation to the next. Mitosis is the second stage of the cell cycle during which the cell's nucleus divides into two new nuclei and one set of DNA is distributed into each daughter cell. Cytokinesis is the final stage of the cell cycle in which the cell's cytoplasm divides, distributing the organelles into each of the two new daughter cells. So, lesson 1 of chapter 8, cells are the basic units of structure and function in living cells. The cell theory states the following: all living things are composed of cells. Cells are the basic units of structure and function in living things, and all cells are produced from other cells. Some microscopes focus light through lenses to produce a magnified image, and other microscopes use beams of electrons. Lesson 2, each kind of cell structure has a different function within a cell. In multicellular organisms, cells are organized into tissues, organs, and organ systems. And we talked about the organization of your body, so it starts as a little cell, which is in a tissue, which is in an organ system, which is in an organism. Lesson 3, an element is any substance that cannot be broken down into simpler substances. Compounds form when two or more elements combine chemically. Some important groups of organic compounds that living things need are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Water is a necessary inorganic compound. And lesson 4, substances that can move into and out of a cell do so by means of one of two processes: passive transport or active transport. Lesson 1 of chapter 9, nearly all living things obtain energy directly or indirectly from the energy of sunlight that is captured during photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, plants and some other organisms absorb energy from the sun and use the energy to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars and oxygen. Lesson 2, during respiration, cells break down glucose and other molecules from food in the presence of oxygen, releasing energy. During fermentation, cells release energy from food without using oxygen. And last, lesson 3, move my bubble here. Cell division allows organisms to grow, repair damaged structures, and reproduce. During the cell cycle, a cell grows, prepares for division, and divides into two new cells, which are called daughter cells. So we had interphase, where they're all just their own, prophase, where they match up, metaphase, anaphase, where they separate, telophase, where they begin to separate into the two daughter cells, and then here they are separated into two daughter cells, each with the same amount of chromosomes. All right, that's it. I know that was a lot. Please let me know if you still have any questions. Otherwise, your assignment is to complete the Edmodo questions for chapter 8, or the chapters 8 to 9 test. This is your last assignment for the quarter in science. So make sure that you are catching up with things if you need to, asking questions if you need to also. That's it. Have a great day.